In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, the kingdom of Israel was overshadowed by a darkness most profound. King Saul, once chosen by God to lead his people, spiraled into despair, tormented by an evil spirit as the hand of the Almighty withdrew. The throne room, once filled with the promise of divine guidance, now harbored shadows creeping along the stone walls, casting grim reflections of a king succumbing to madness. The people of Israel watched helplessly as their beloved monarch, consumed by jealousy and fear, turned against those he once called allies, his mind gripped by unseen forces of chaos. In that tumultuous season, from the humble fields of Bethlehem, a shepherd boy named David arose, anointed by the prophet Samuel, destined to be a beacon of hope amidst the engulfing darkness. He tended his flock under the watchful eye of Yahweh, feeling the whispers of the Almighty instilling courage and faith deep within his heart. Unbeknownst to him, David would soon find himself embroiled in a cosmic battle that stretched beyond the tangible realm. As the armies of Israel trembled, Goliath of Gath emerged, his stature and taunts echoing through the valley of Elah like a thunderstorm imposing its will upon the hearts of men. To the soldiers, he represented the primal forces of rebellion, an embodiment of terror that paralyzed them, while King Saul wavered in his resolve. Hope seemed lost, as Goliath, a monstrous giant, bellowed his challenges, defying not only the men of Israel but the mighty God they served. Yet in that moment of despair, David's spirit burned bright. With only a slingshot and 5 smooth stones, he made his way to the battlefield, unwavering in faith. "You come to me with a sword and with a spear, and with a javelin," he declared boldly, "but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel." His words rang like a clarion call, summoning the power of heaven against the forces threatening to shatter the covenant between God and his people. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. With an act of faith, David swung the slingshot, and the stone flew forth like a divine arrow, piercing the air before finding its mark. An ominous silence filled the valley as Goliath staggered and fell, signaling a shift in the battle, a moment where heaven and earth intertwined with destiny. The forces of chaos quivered in the face of God's anointed. Yet, uncertainty lurked, for with this victory, the foundations of Saul's leadership continued to shake as darkness encroached upon his heart, heralding deeper trials ahead for David, a journey woven into the fabric of God's grand redemptive plan. As shadows draw nearer, the fate of King Saul and the promise of a new king intertwine amidst the ongoing struggle of light against darkness. How will David navigate the labyrinth of trials that await him, and what whispers of hope will emerge from the ruins of despair? The stage is set, and the cosmic battle continues. What fate awaits those who stand on the precipice of faith against overwhelming odds? The journey has only just begun. And it came to pass that David, having triumphed over Goliath, was brought before King Saul. The throne room, still echoing with the victory of an unlikely champion, could not escape the weight of disquiet that lingered in the air. Saul, enveloped in his descent into darkness, looked upon David with a mixture of admiration and envy, for the Spirit of the Lord was with David, yet had departed from him. 1 Samuel 16 verse 14. As the people of Israel rejoiced, singing, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands." Their words pierced Saul's heart like sharp arrows, stoking the flame of jealousy that consumed him. In that moment, the king's spirit turned against David, and the seeds of wrath were sown within him. 1 Samuel 18 verse 7-9. David returned to his duties, but a shadow loomed over the joy of his victory. He played the harp, hoping to soothe the troubled spirit of Saul. The music flowed like a river of calm in the storm of madness, yet each chord served to remind Saul of the rising star that threatened his reign. 1 Samuel 16 verse 23. In days that followed, unrest rippled through the ranks of Israel's army. Saul, gripped by paranoia, sought to eliminate the threat that David posed, hatching schemes that would lead to the young man's banishment. The servants of Saul could sense the king's growing fury and were torn between loyalty to their sovereign and admiration for David, who had become beloved by the people. 1 Samuel 18 verse 29. One fateful day, in a moment overcome by rage, Saul hurled a spear at David, intending to take his life. David, quick of foot, dodged the treacherous missile, escaping with his life. From that moment, he understood that his journey would lead him into the wilderness, a place of trial and deepening dependence on God. 1 Samuel 19 verse 9-10. As David fled, he found refuge in the caves of Adullam, gathering around him the distressed, the indebted, and the discontented, forming a band of men who clung to the hope that the Lord had chosen David to be king. Even in his plight, David's heart remained steadfast, and he sought the counsel of God. 1 Samuel 22 verse 1-2. In those rugged caves, amidst the stark wilderness, a psalm emerged from David's lips, expressing the deep anguish and longing for the presence of the Lord. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? Psalm 27 verse 1. The cave walls echoed with the truth of his faith, rendering the darkness around him powerless. Meanwhile, Saul's pursuit intensified, for he sought out David relentlessly, driven by a fear that twisted his heart into deeper depths of wickedness. The once anointed king found himself ensnared in a web of darkness, his mind plagued by a spirit of fear and malice. Yet the plans of the Almighty were unfolding in ways unseen by man. For as David hid in the shadows, God was preparing him not only for kingship but for a legacy that would span generations. Even in the wilderness, the heart of David was being shaped, and within this crucible of pain, the true character of a king was being forged. And so, the battle raged not only in the physical realm but in the spiritual atmosphere as well, where unseen forces contended for the soul of the nation. What would become of Saul in his relentless pursuit, and how would David rise up from the depths of despair? In the hands of God, every moment bore the weight of his divine purpose, and the story was destined to unfold beyond what the eyes could see. The battle for a kingdom was far from over, it was only beginning. And it came to pass that David, amidst the shadows of the caves, yielded his heart to the Lord in prayer, seeking refuge and salvation from the relentless pursuit of King Saul. As his band of misfits turned into mighty warriors, they shared in his faith and trust in the Almighty. Together they cried out, "O Lord, our strength and our deliverer, hear us in our time of need." In those days, David, gazing out from the cave's mouth, recalled the words of the prophet Samuel, who had anointed him as future king over Israel. A sense of hope mingled with despair, and he clung to the promises God had whispered in his ear. Within his heart brewed the determination to trust in the unfolding plan of the Most High. 1 Samuel 16 verses 12-13. Yet Saul, consumed by madness, sought to extinguish the light that shone upon David. News reached Saul that David had fled to the wilderness of Ziph. Thus, he marshaled his forces, declaring, "I shall pursue him until I capture him. The throne is mine by right, and he shall not live to claim it." 1 Samuel 23 verses 19-20. As his men prepared for battle, David, knowing the Lord was with him, sent spies to gather intelligence about Saul's movements. In moments of great danger, he was reminded of the heroes who had laid their lives down for the sake of the nation, and he continued to encourage his men, saying, "Be strong and courageous. The Lord our God is with us, and he shall deliver us." Deuteronomy 31 verse 6. One night, while Saul camped in the hill of Hachilah, with a great host at his back, David ventured forth with Abishai, his loyal companion. Together they crept into the enemy camp. There lay King Saul, oblivious to his peril, resting with his spear stuck in the ground beside him. Abishai whispered, "Let me strike him down, for surely the Lord has delivered your enemy into your hand." 1 Samuel 26 verse 8. But David, with a heart that remembered the anointing and mercy of God, replied, far be it from me to stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. Let us take his spear and water jug, that he may know his life is held in the palm of the Almighty. 1 Samuel 26 verses 9-11. Thus, they took the spear of Saul and the jug of water, retreating unnoticed into the night. From a distance, David called out, "O king! Why do you pursue me when I have done you no harm? The Lord judges between us." 1 Samuel 26 verses 17-19. Abashed, Saul recognized David's voice, and as he stood broken before his loyal servant, he declared, "You are more righteous than I, for you have rewarded me with kindness when I sought to kill you." 1 Samuel 26 verse 21. Saul, trembling under the weight of his actions, admitted his wrong and implored David's mercy, but the deep jealousy remained like a thorn in his side. As the tension deepened, the Spirit of God stirred within David's heart. In the darkest moments of his trials, God laid upon him a revelation, "For this moment of mercy is but a whisper of the everlasting covenant I am establishing between my chosen and my people. A lineage will arise, and David's heart shall remain steadfast through every tribulation." 2 Samuel 7 verse 13. Little did they know, that as they stood there in the wilderness exchange, the true war waged on, for the fate of the nation lay in the balance. God's sovereign plan was drawing nearer, revealing the path of trust and trials, shaping David not just for the throne, but for the eternal legacy of faith yet to unfold before the eyes of all Israel. Would Saul relent or descend further into darkness? And what did God have in store for David amidst such peril? The tapestry of divine purpose began weaving threads not visible to the eyes of men, but in the heart of the Almighty. The story was leading to truth yet hidden from both the seeker and the pursued. And it came to pass, after that day of confrontation, David returned to his stronghold, burdened with the grief of knowing that Saul's heart was still ensnared in darkness. In the quiet of the night, as the camp lay hushed, he turned his heart to the Lord in prayer, saying, "O Lord, my God, how long shall the wicked scheme against me? Restore peace to my soul, for I am weary of fear." Psalm 13 verses 1-2. Yet the Lord, in his faithfulness, did not abandon David. He sent a messenger with tidings, saying, "Fear not, for the Lord has heard your cry and is with you in your distress." With this assurance, the weight upon David's heart lightened, and he took courage, recalling the promise given to him through Samuel that he would be king over Israel. 1 Samuel 16 verses 12-13. Now, while David sought wisdom from the Lord, Saul continued in his madness, pursuing with greater intensity. He gathered men from across the land, swearing an oath that he would bring David down, declaring, "Let the gods do so to me, and more, if by this time tomorrow I do not make David as one of those who stand before me." 1 Samuel 24 verse 13. As Saul plotted, David sought refuge in the wilderness of Maon. Yet, even in the vast desolation, the Lord had prepared a way. In this wilderness, a wealthy man named Nabal lived, a man known both for his folly and his abundant flocks. David, in need, sent messengers to Nabal, saying, "Peace be to you, and to your house, I come in the name of the Lord. Give me, I pray you, what you have on hand, for we have protected your shepherds from harm." 1 Samuel 25 verses 6-8. But Nabal, unmoved by kindness, answered harshly, "Who is David? There are many servants these days who break away from their masters." 1 Samuel 25 verse 10. The response stung like a serpent's bite, and David was filled with anger, preparing to take vengeance. Yet in that moment of rage, the Lord intervened, sending Abigail, Nabal's wise wife, to plead for mercy. When she met David, she fell at his feet, saying, "Upon me, my lord, be the guilt. Let your servant speak, and hear the words of your maidservant. Please, do not let my husband's folly become a snare for you." 1 Samuel 25 verses 24-25. Her words cut through the darkness of David's wrath, and he recognized the hand of God in her intercession. David declared, "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, who sent you to meet me this day. For your wisdom has preserved me from shedding blood." 1 Samuel 25 verses 32-33. With Abigail's supplies shared freely, they returned in peace, and David blessed her for her great faith and courage. As the days flowed like the river, word came to David of Nabal's death, and rejoicing filled his heart. David sent messengers to propose marriage to Abigail, who willingly embraced her new path, her spirit intertwined with the man after God's own heart. 1 Samuel 25 verses 39 to 42. Yet amidst these joys, a shadow lingered. News of quarrels spread among the tribes, whispers of David's rightful claim and Saul's dwindling power. The conspiracy deepened, and the people found themselves at a crossroads, the fate of the kingdom hanging in the balance. Would David ascend as the king ordained by the Lord, or would Saul's madness lead the nation into ruin? As the skies darkened, the tapestry of God's plan brightened, revealing the legacy of David yet to be sung, a covenant that would bind generations. For the heart of the Almighty was aligning the stars of destiny, pulling forth a promise greater than they could understand, one marked by the shadow of the cross to come. And it came to pass, as the sun rose over the hills, that David found himself in a state of deep contemplation, pondering the providence of God amid the turmoil surrounding him. Though Abigail had brought him solace, the weight of the crown hung heavily upon his brow. He called upon the Lord once more, saying, "Guide me, O Lord, for I am but a shepherd seeking direction amidst the falling shadows of despair." Psalm 23 verse 3. In the days that followed, the hearts of the people were stirred. A faction rose in support of David, for they recognized in him a leader chosen by God, a man imbued not with pride but with humility. The elders of Judah gathered, proclaiming, "Behold, David reigns. The Spirit of the Lord is upon him." 2 Samuel 2 verse 4. His fame spread throughout the land like the morning light, drawing those weary of Saul's reign into David's camp. But Saul, upon hearing the murmurs of rebellion, was filled with rage. His heart, once touched by the music of David's harp, now hardened like stone, and he devised a plot so wicked that the earth trembled. He called upon his trusted generals, commanding them, "Go, subdue David in the wilderness, for he must perish lest the throne be taken from me." 1 Samuel 26 verse 1. Yet unbeknownst to Saul, the Lord's hand was upon his anointed. David, ever attuned to the whispers of God, spied the movements of Saul, knowing his adversary's intent. He gathered his valiant men and said, "Let us not lay a hand on the Lord's anointed, for the time of his fall is appointed by the Almighty alone." 1 Samuel 26 verse 9. In this resolve, faith met courage, and righteousness flamed brightly against the shadows. As the night deepened, David and his faithful companion Abishai crept into the very camp of Saul, for the Lord had caused a deep sleep to fall upon the soldiers. There lay Saul, his spear beside him, while a mere distance away David beheld the opportunity to end this strife forever. Abishai whispered, "Let me smite him, and I will not need to strike twice." 1 Samuel 26 verse 8. But David restrained him fiercely, saying, "Do not destroy him, for who can stretch forth a hand against the Lord's anointed and remain innocent?" 1 Samuel 26 verse 9. Instead, David lifted the spear from its resting place, a token of his mercy, and from a distant perch upon the hillside, he called out, "Saul, my lord, why do you pursue me as if I were a flea? See, I have spared your life." 1 Samuel 26 verses 17 to 20. The words rang out, echoing through the valley, striking the heart of Saul with the weight of truth. The voice of David echoed in the stillness, captivating the ears of those who once were his enemies. Saul, hardened yet briefly softened by the confrontation, answered, "Is that your voice, my son David? I have sinned, for I have been foolish and have erred greatly." 1 Samuel 26 verse 21. A moment of despair washed over him, for he knew the darkness within and the grace extended before him. And so it came to pass, as the dawn broke and the sun spread its rays, that David, the man of God, returned to his stronghold with a heart full of praise and a promise unbroken. "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" Psalm 27 verse 1. Yet in this tale of mercy and pursuit, another thread began to weave itself into the grand tapestry of divine destiny. Little did David know, the Lord was orchestrating events far beyond his understanding, shaping a future where a kingdom divided would yet rise united in line with God's sovereign decree. What glory awaited him, and what legacy would unfold from the depths of trial and mercy? The chapter of the king was still being written by the very hand of God, waiting to unveil the miraculous ending hidden in the heart of eternity. And it came to pass, in the days that followed, that David sought the Lord in prayer, asking for guidance as to how he should lead the people who had gathered under his banner. "Show me your way, O Lord," he pleaded, "teach me your paths." Psalm 25 verse 4. His heart yearned for understanding, for the kingdom lay both heavy and full of promise before him. Word reached David that the Philistines had gathered their armies against Keilah, seeking to plunder the harvest and to enslave the people. And the elders of Keilah, in their desperation, sent messengers to David, saying, "Come down to us, for we are beset by the enemy." 1 Samuel 23 verse 1. David, hearing the cry of the oppressed, asked of the Lord, "Shall I go and smite these Philistines?" The Lord replied, "Go, for I will deliver the Philistines into your hand." 1 Samuel 23 verse 2. So David summoned his men, those valiant warriors bonded by faith, and together they made their way to Keilah. They fought with the strength given by God, and the Philistines fell before them. David delivered the city, and the people rejoiced, singing praises unto the Lord. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. 1 Samuel 17 verse 47. Yet amidst the victory, word came that Saul had learned of David's presence in Keilah and was determined to encircle the city, intent on capturing him. Fear gripped David's heart, and he returned to the Lord in prayer. "O Lord, will the men of Keilah deliver me into the hand of Saul?" 1 Samuel 23 verse 10. The Lord answered him, saying, "They will indeed deliver you." 1 Samuel 23 verse 12. Thus, with great wisdom, David and his men slipped away by night, fleeing to the wilderness of Ziph. As David wandered through the desolate hills and valleys, there came Jonathan, the son of Saul, seeking him out. He found David in the forest of Horish and strengthened his hand in the Lord. "Fear not," Jonathan spoke tenderly, "for the hand of my father is not set against you, and you shall be king over Israel." 1 Samuel 23 verses 16 to 17. Such words breathed life into David's weary spirit, filling him with renewed hope. But even as David hearted his fears, he continued to live under the shadow of Saul's pursuit. The relentless pursuit of Saul, who wished to extinguish the light of David, weighed heavily upon him like a thick fog. In these moments of trial, David penned praises, enveloping his prayers in the lyrical beauty of lamentation and supplication, echoing his trust in God. "I will trust in you, O Lord, I say, you are my God." Psalm 31 verse 14. Then, a great intrigue unfolded, as the Ziphites came to Saul, saying, "Is not David hiding among us?" 1 Samuel 23 verse 19. Thus, Saul took 3,000 chosen men and pursued David. But the Lord intervened, for he caused a great disturbance among the Philistines, demanding Saul's attention. In that hour, David was spared, and continued to elude capture. As the sun set against the horizon, casting vibrant strokes of orange and purple across the sky, David found refuge in the rock of the wilderness. In that solitude, his spirit cried aloud, "The Lord is my rock and my fortress." Psalm 18 verse 2. He sensed that the trials ahead would indeed refine him, shaping him into the king he was destined to become. Yet, as David faithfully navigated these treacherous paths, the intricate tapestry of divine purpose continued to unfold. What seemed like chaos was merely the hand of God weaving together a master plan. What glory awaited in the shadows of uncertainty! The time was drawing near when God's covenant, spoken in whispers to his chosen, would be manifested in ways both wondrous and profound. And it came to pass, as David lingered in the wilderness, that the cry of his spirit rose anew before the Lord. Though he faced despair and uncertainty, his heart was fixed upon the promises of God. The shadows lengthened, yet within him kindled a flame of faith. He remembered the prophetic words spoken over him, and in solitude, he uttered, Lord, lead me to the place you have prepared for me. Psalm 27 verse 11. Days turned into nights, and as they traveled deeper into the wilderness, David and his men found themselves weary, their souls burdened by the weight of the world. Yet in the depth of night, a deep sense of peace enveloped him, for he understood that even in darkness, God had not forsaken him. Then it was that the Ziphites approached David once more, this time with a heaviness in their voices. They spoke, saying, "We have heard of your bravery, and yet, we fear for our own safety. Saul seeks your life, choose, therefore, that we may protect our own." 1 Samuel 26 verse 1. David, discerning their hearts, understood the treachery that lay behind their words. With holy wisdom, he responded, "If the Lord has stirred your hearts against me, then I cannot stay." In the stillness of the night, while his men rested, David ascended a hill to seek the Lord alone. There he prayed fervently, "O Lord, you are my refuge, my fortress in times of trouble." Psalm 91 verse 2. As he prayed, the Lord drew near and spoke into his spirit, filling him with assurance. "Fear not, for I am with you, I have not forgotten my covenant with you." Genesis 17 verse 7. Then, in a moment ordained by divine will, David learned that Saul camped in the valley nearby. An opportunity had arisen, for the Lord had orchestrated events that would lead David directly to the heart of his enemy. With a fierce determination and the counsel of his trusted friend Abishai, he slipped into the camp of Saul. "Let me go in," David urged Abishai, who had always felt a fierce loyalty toward him. "For who can lay a hand on the Lord's anointed and remain guiltless?" 1 Samuel 26 verse 9. But Abishai, filled with the fierce fire of fervor, could scarcely understand. "Let me smite him," he implored, "and I shall not need to strike twice." 1 Samuel 26 verse 8. Yet David, resolute in his commitment to honor God's anointed, refrained. He took only his spear and a jug of water from beside Saul's head and withdrew into the night. When morning dawned, David stood upon a neighboring hill, far enough to be safe yet close enough to be heard. He called out to Saul, "My lord the king." 1 Samuel 26 verse 17. The king awoke from his sleep and looked up, and at the sight of David, his heart trembled. "Is this your voice, my son David?" he asked, bewildered. Thus, David beseeched him, "Why do you pursue me? I have done you no harm." 1 Samuel 26 verse 18. And as they exchanged words, the truth of David's heart shone brightly. "The Lord has delivered you into my hand, yet I will not harm you." 1 Samuel 26 verse 23. In that moment, the clouds of animosity began to dissipate, and the whisper of divine providence echoed in the air. Could it be that through this tumultuous path of trials, God was working towards reconciliation? The dawn of understanding broke forth as David's integrity became a conduit for grace, revealing that even among adversaries, divine purpose was unfolding. Yet, in that very exchange, uncertainty loomed overhead. What deeper purpose did God have for David's life and Saul's unfolding tragedy? As David descended the mountain, a greater mystery awaited the dawn of revelation. The divine orchestration of their destinies was far from complete, and the tapestry of God's plan grew more intricate, as a covenant promise lingered on the horizon. What awaited this prayerful heart was yet to be unveiled. It was time for the kingdom to awaken to the fullness of his sovereign grace. And it came to pass, as David stood upon the hillside, the echoes of his words hung heavily in the air. Saul, faced with the kindness of his pursuer, felt the weight of his own errant desires. "I have sinned," he declared at last. "Return, my son David, for I will no more do you harm, because my life was precious in your eyes this day. Behold, I have played the fool." 1 Samuel 26 verse 21. Yet, David's heart stirred not with trust, for the shadows of doubt still lingered within him. "The king may seek peace now," he murmured under his breath, "but how long will the heart of man remain steadfast?" Then David replied, "See the king's spear. Let one of the young men come over and fetch it." 1 Samuel 26 verse 22. With this act, he placed before Saul the token of his mercy, a reminder that he had spared the king's life, entrusted not by man, but by God's own hand. And Saul recognized the sheer depth of grace that David had shown. Blessed are you, my son David. You shall both do great things and also prevail. 1 Samuel 26 verse 25. Yet as his words echoed, David felt a shiver touch his spirit. The promise of recognition was but a thin veil over Saul's nature, ever fragile and treacherous. As David returned to the wilderness, deep reflections filled his mind while he pondered the fickleness of the heart. What if today's peace were but an illusion? He spoke softly to himself. Shall I trust in man's reconciliation, or shall I lean wholly upon the Lord? Days turned into weeks, and weary from the ceaseless turmoil, David sought the Lord with unwavering intent. His thoughts turned towards the covenant made with him by Samuel long ago, "You shall be king over Israel," 1 Samuel 16 verse 12. Yet each day presented new trials, and the shadows followed him as Saul's anger simmered just below the surface. Meanwhile, Saul became vulnerable to the dark whispers of jealousy, which festered in the depths of his soul. The spirits of discord and malice sought him fiercely. He withdrew even from his trusted counselors, blinded by a consuming fear of losing his kingdom. "Call forth the medium of Endor," he commanded one fateful night, longing for a glimmer of insight, "for I shall seek the voice of Samuel." 1 Samuel 28 verse 7. In his desperation, Saul turned to shadows instead of the light, and in doing so, opened the door to forces stronger than man could comprehend. The medium conjured the voice of Samuel, and despair gripped Saul's heart as he heard the prophecy of doom declared over him. "Why have you disturbed me, bringing me up? The Lord has departed from you and become your enemy." 1 Samuel 28 verse 16. Unbeknownst to Saul, the threads of fate wove tightly around both men, and the kingdom, poised at the precipice, waited for the appointed time when heaven's decree would unfold. As David knelt by a stream, a divine urgency surged within him. Could it be that in God's sovereign plan, a greater trial awaited him? The kingdom's future loomed, shrouded in mystery, and soon the day would come when God's chosen would rise to the throne fulfilled by a king after his own heart. Little did David know that the paths of light and shadow were converging, where the fate of man would collide with the will of the Almighty. For in the depths of betrayal and strife lay the seed of destiny, rooted firmly in divine purpose, waiting to blossom into God's climactic revelation. And it came to pass, in those days, as the winds whispered among the hills of Ziph, that the heart of David remained heavy with the weight of his calling. It was here, in this wilderness of his plight, that the Spirit of the Lord stirred within him, prompting him deep into prayer and reflection. "Why dost thou hide thy face from me, O Lord?" David cried out. "Shall thy servant be left to wander among the shadows forever?" His voice rose like a song at dawn, pleading for divine intervention. Yet, in the corridors of Saul's heart, the tendrils of his envy twisted tighter, turning him toward sinister intentions. He sought those who would share in his despair, summoning men of harsh words and malice. "Let David be hunted," he commanded with a voice heavy with fury. "He shall not stand against me, for I will rid myself of this threat, even as the sun chases the night." As fate would entwine their pathways, it was in this very hour that David, seeking solace, found refuge among the fortified city of Keilah. Word reached him that the Philistines were coming to wage war against the city, and David, moved with compassion, inquired of the Lord, saying, "Shall I go and smite these Philistines?" The Lord answered, "Go, and smite the Philistines, and save Keilah." 1 Samuel 23 verse 2. Filled with the strength of the Almighty, David and his men descended like a storm upon the enemy, and the Lord delivered them into his hand. With a decisive victory, the townsfolk rejoiced, "David has come to save us." Yet, even in this triumph, a shadow loomed, for Saul learned of David's presence in Keilah, and his heart surged with intent. "Hear me, O men of Judah!" Saul cried out. "The time has come. Into my hands shall David fall, for he hath fortified himself within a city with gates and bars." 1 Samuel 23 verse 7. His heart grew dark, consumed with the desire to extinguish the flicker of promise that dwelled in David. But unbeknownst to Saul, Jonathan, his son, moved with a spirit of loyalty and love for David, slipped away to see him. "Fear not, my brother," he whispered by the night's campfire, as his eyes held the light of kinship. "For the Lord will not forsake you. I have come to renew your strength against my father's wrath." 1 Samuel 23 verse 16. As they pledged their hearts to each other anew, the weight of Jonathan's words comforted David. "As surely as the Lord liveth, thou shalt be king over Israel, and I shall be with thee." 1 Samuel 23 verse 17. In that sacred moment, David felt the assurance of God's promise, binding their hearts like a covenant of old. But the winds of misfortune blew fiercely, and news of David's escape spread like wildfire. Saul, furious yet cunning, pursued him as the sea follows the shore, determined to envelop him in despair. Yet, God, in his sovereign wisdom, led David into the wilderness of Maon, a place shrouded in mystery and full of divine purpose. As Saul closed in, the very ground beneath them trembled, for God's hand was at work. A messenger rushed to Saul, "The Philistines are upon us." They declared, and in that moment, the forces of darkness were diverted, allowing David to slip through the cracks of fate. The mind of man may devise many pathways, yet many are the plans in a heart, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. Proverbs 19 verse 21. And as David found shelter, he heard once more the voice of his heart, "What is this that you do, trusting in yourself? Lean upon the everlasting arms, for your destiny is secure." For in the silent whispers of the heavens, the stage was being set. The destiny of a king lay ahead, ripe with divine mystery and challenges, awaiting the hour when God would reveal his sovereign plan, unfolding in the light of his glory. And it came to pass that in the fullness of time, God, faithful to his promise, led David through the wilderness to the appointed moment of fulfillment. The shadows that once cloaked his path began to lift, and the sun of divine favor shone brightly upon him. For the Lord spoke to David through the whisper of the wind, saying, "Now is the time to rise, for I have seen your heart and know your cries." Psalm 34 verse 17. As Saul continued his descent into darkness, madness gnawing at his reason, the throne of Israel trembled with uncertainty. Yet, David, now a seasoned warrior burdened by both his triumphs and sorrows, gathered his faithful band of men, who had rallied to him not merely for camaraderie but for the calling of the one true God. "Let us march forth," he declared, "for the Lord has appointed us a destiny far greater than these trials. We shall stand together as one people under Yahweh's banner." 1 Samuel 30 verse 7. Hearts ignited by David's resolute faith, they journeyed toward Hebron, where the elders of Judah awaited them. There, with trembling hands and hopeful hearts, they anointed David as king over the house of Judah. 2 Samuel 2 verse 4. The news echoed through the land: David was king. Though the shadow of Saul lingered, light pierced through the darkness, heralding the dawn of a new era in Israel. Yet Saul, feeling the weight of betrayal, remained blinded by the chains of jealousy, declaring, "I will not yield," and sent his forces to suppress this new uprising. But, unaware of the blessings that were pouring forth upon David, the Spirit of the Lord began to stir the hearts of the people. The tribes of Israel, weary of Saul's tyranny, began to rally to David's side, recognizing that he was indeed the anointed of the Lord. As the days unfolded like the petals of a blooming flower, David declared a covenant with his people: "Let us unite as the family of God, for in our bond there lies strength, and in our strength the fulfillment of his promise." 2 Samuel 5 verses 1-3. They rejoiced and shared one moment of clarity among the strife. Here is the king chosen by God. Let us not fear but press onward into his promise. And it came to pass that the faithful sought the Lord, and he was found among them. David knelt in prayer: "O Lord, give me strength, for we are yet besieged. Guide our steps as we seek to reclaim what is of you." The Lord answered with a resounding voice, "Fear not, for I am with you. The battles ahead belong to me, for I have destined you to lead my people into their inheritance." 1 Samuel 30 verse 8. With that revealed assurance, David and his followers pressed against the forces of darkness in battle after battle, time and again witnessing God's promise manifested through victory. The kingdom still swung like a pendulum, caught in the throes of conflict, yet with every skirmish, the hearts of the Israelites turned toward David, and their voices began to rise in unity, "Long live King David! For he is a man after God's own heart." And Saul's power waned as darkness continued enveloping him. The final confrontation drew near in the valley of Gilboa, where the shadows which once haunted David's soul now encircled his enemy. With his last breaths, the broken king, tormented by his choices, fell upon his sword, marking the end of a tragic chapter that had warped his once noble reign. 1 Samuel 31 verse 4. With Saul's death, the torch of leadership passed fully to David, who, despite his trials and despair, upheld a heart of compassion and sorrow for the man he once served. He mourned for Saul, recognizing that even in madness, he had been a fellow servant of God's will. How the mighty have fallen! He cried out, the depths of his lament resonating through the land. 2 Samuel 1 verse 19. Thus, David ascended the throne in unity, ruling with a heart forged through struggle, temperance, and faith. The kingdom vibrated with a new hope as he established the foundations of Israel under the Lord's covenant, uniting the tribes as one. 2 Samuel 5 verse 10. He danced before the Lord, praising him, for in God's divine wisdom, the purpose had been fulfilled. And from that day forth, as David reigned, he sought to honor the covenant. He carried a lineage that would usher in a greater king, the Messiah, who would reign eternally. For the plans of the Lord had never wavered, what was designed in the shadows of despair had blossomed in the light of redemption. As the tale of David's ascent etched itself into the annals of history, we are reminded that from every trial comes triumph, from every shadow, a light destined to shine in the hearts of believers. Rejoice, dear friends, for God's promises are unshakable, flowing through every word and weaving together our lives in His grand design. Now, in this time of reflection, I invite you to share in this truth. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories that unveil God's unwavering love for His people. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm, and comment your spiritual reflections. How has this biblical story impacted your faith? Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth, for only true believers understand the importance of supporting biblical content through these actions to reach more souls for Christ.